out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Sir, you are out of line. Please stop this from happening. Get out.
Democrats should bring it to the floor since they're still in power now. They should bring this stuff to the floor every day.
I'm so tired of the, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough.
We're going to pick apart the difference between genuine complaints and concerns and disingenuous, cynical nonsense. Also, Democrats are not going to put a bill on the floor to quell, quote-unquote, gun control. That coming from Senator Chuck Schumer. California put in a new Texas abortion-style ban on weapons. Holy cow, there's a bunch of stuff coming up. All that and more coming up on this episode of Daily Caller Live. My name is Jobob. Daily Caller Live starts right now.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
That might be the only brown guy on earth named Jobob.
That is actually their name, Jobob.
Ooh, live from the dingy bunker, completely cut off from the outside world, except for you fine folks. My name is Jobob. Today it is May 26th, the year of our Lord 2022. Wanted to talk about how I'm observing things. Yesterday we kind of just talked about, what in the world is going on. Kind of talked briefly about genuine arguments and disingenuous arguments. And I think we've got a couple examples for you today of kind of explaining what that is. I know a lot of you have seen a lot of different videos bouncing around the internet or on TV. Steve Kerr, coach of the Golden State Warriors, as seen here, on Tuesday issued an impassioned press conference before the Warriors game against Dallas in the NBA playoffs. Yesterday, also, Robert O'Rourke, running for governor of Texas, interrupted a press conference that Governor Greg Abbott was giving in Texas. I think we should all be aware that these two things are very separate. They are different things entirely. The impassioned speech by a basketball coach is very, very different than the cynical attention grab of a gubernatorial candidate in Texas. I don't think us conflating these two things to be together. Now, for the record, they're both wrong. But they're wrong in different ways, and I think that matters a lot. Here's a video of Steve Kerr yesterday, 2 days ago, at a press conference before their basketball game. Watch this, and then we'll watch O'Rourke and discuss the difference. Watch this.
I'm tired. I'm so tired of getting up here and offering condolences to the devastated families that are out there. I'm so tired of I'm sorry. I'm tired of the moments of silence. Enough. There's 50 senators right now who refuse to vote on H.R. 8, which is a background check rule that the House passed a couple of years ago. It's been sitting there for 2 years.
Okay, so that's Steve Kerr. He goes on to talk about legislation that unfortunately he does not know what he's talking about in that regard. But the dude is upset. All of us are upset. I don't fault him for being upset and then having an emotional reaction to a terrible, terrible tragedy. But the thing is, he meant it. Again, he's wrong about the actual policy standpoint. When you talk about quote-unquote gun control, you don't just get to pass common sense gun laws. There has to be specifics. And when you get down to the specifics, that's when you get the nuance. And quite frankly, I'm not entirely sure the Senate or Congress or the president or anybody in charge is capable of the amount of nuance it would take to actually craft something that would make any sense. So in that regard, he's just flat out wrong. But I don't blame him for trying to make a gesture. On the other hand, there are people like Beto O'Rourke. Beto O'Rourke is running for governor of the state of Texas. He rose to prominence in his failed Senate campaign to unseat Senator Ted Cruz. Yesterday, during a press conference that Governor Greg Abbott was giving, Beto decided to walk up to the front and start yelling at the sitting governor. Watch this and we'll discuss the hack that is the gubernatorial candidate in Texas.
Shooting is right now, and you are doing nothing.
No.
You are offering us
You
nothing. You said this was not predictable. This is totally predictable when you choose not to do anything.
Sir, you're out of line. Sir, you're out of line. Please
To stop this from happening again.
He's going to stand there as long as he can get all of those photographers in place.
Tragedy happened here. We need to make it. This is not the place to do that.
He knows exactly what he's doing. He understands the media scope. He's walking back, and now he's going to turn around and give them one more great photo of him pointing.
This will continue to happen. Somebody needs to stand up for the children of this state, or they will continue to be killed, just like they were killed in Uvalde yesterday.
The difference I want to explain here is that while I disagree with the Golden State Warriors basketball coach Steve Kerr, I don't think he's a bad person. He may be a hack when it comes to politics, but I don't think he's a bad person acting in bad faith. He believes what he believes, even though he's wrong. Beto O'Rourke, on the other hand, knows exactly what he's doing. He understands exactly that him going and interrupting a press conference in a terrible situation is going to make it look like he's really, really in it for the fight on social media. He was praised widely and got clumped in with Steve Kerr yesterday. People like Steve Kerr and Beto O'Rourke are really fighting for what we believe in. There's a difference. And the reason you can tell that difference is because Beto O'Rourke has always been a hack. In 2018, he ran for the Senate against Ted Cruz. He was unsuccessful, but put up a decent fight. Now, here's the thing. Here's why we can all know that Beto O'Rourke is in it for himself. He's got an ego problem. If he wanted to, that race between Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke was very close in 2018. If he wanted to, he could have run for Senate again against John Cornyn, who was up in 2020, other senator from Texas. And honestly, could have had a decent chance of winning. I don't want that. People of Texas probably don't want that. But given the turnout in the election of Joe Biden and given a bunch of different factors, it's very possible that he could have won, but he didn't run against Cornyn in 2020. He ran for president instead because the guy is an egomaniac and thought, I should be president of the United States, having only been elected to Congress thus far and run a failed Senate campaign against a popular Texas senator. And now he's running for governor. He could have theoretically had a Senate seat, but decided he was important enough to be in the White House. And that's why, on top of many other reasons, Beto O'Rourke is a cynical hack. The stunt that he pulled yesterday was entirely self-serving. Again, that is not the same as an impassioned basketball coach. They're both wrong, but they're wrong in different ways. Speaking of the H.R. 8 that Steve Kerr was talking about, I want to jump to this because this is interesting. There's an article that I didn't read that I thought was interesting on the Beto O'Rourke thing, but we've talked long enough about that. You all know that Beto O'Rourke is a hack and out for attention and trying to make it about himself. But I wanted to get to this. This was from CNN, I believe last night, John King on CNN talking about the bill going into the Senate regarding quote unquote gun control, which I said it entirely yesterday. This has been my entire point this entire time. The refusal to talk about anything else aside from guns isn't going to help anybody. But the fact that we're only talking about guns, I guess we have to engage in that conversation. This is from CNN last night. John King saying Democrats should put gun control on the floor every single day. I'm going to play this clip and then tell you why they're not doing it. Watch this from CNN.
Well, it's cowardly. It's cowardly, and Democrats should bring it to the floor since they're still in power now. They should bring this stuff to the floor every day, and they should separate it one piece by one piece by one piece. So if there is a piece in there that's controversial, that's fine.
Okay, so he's talking about Democrats should bring the bills to the floor every single day. Steve Kerr talked about H.R. 8. Without going into the nitty-gritty specifics, because it's complicated, and honestly, I'm not entirely sure how I understand it either. But all of that stuff is coupled together. That H.R. 8 bill that people have been talking about, background checks. Okay, first things first, background checks are very difficult to implement in a personal sale. And are you going to disallow people for... It seems like an unworkable situation, but the American people, for a lot of it, believe that background checks could be a good thing. The problem is it's coupled with two other bills that really nobody wants and nobody would vote for. The issue that I think Democrats are going to face, especially within their own party, comes from Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer is the Senate Majority Leader in the Senate. He's got 50 Democrats plus Kamala Harris and decides whether or not bills go onto the floor. Yesterday, Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, this is from CBS. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer signaled Wednesday that the chamber will not quickly vote on a pair of House-passed background check bills, giving Democrats and Republicans time to negotiate possible but improbable bipartisan deals to address the separate, they talk about the mass shooting, which again is horrible, but the fact that we're only focusing on guns is going to lead nowhere. Chuck Schumer says my Republican colleagues don't want to work with us now. So he's not going to bring a bill quickly to the floor. And realistically, let's see, he's going to punt until after the Memorial Day congressional recess. What that means is the heat will die down and he probably won't bring the bill to the floor at all. He said yesterday, we will vote on this, but they say that time and time again. The reason Chuck Schumer, Democrat, Senate, isn't going to bring this to the floor is because he knows that he doesn't even have the Democrat votes to get this stuff through. He's blaming it on the Republicans and their lack of wanting to work on the problem together, but he knows that Democrats themselves won't vote on it. And how bad is that going to look for him and his party going forward? Schumer's move to likely punt until after the Memorial Day congressional recess, however, says he will take steps, in the opinion, to bring in the future quick background checks in a bill to the Senate floor. But he's complaining that Democrats lack the Republican votes needed to defeat the GOP filibuster. In terms of a debate, I would be willing to bet from a political standpoint, and this is as cynical as it gets, I would be willing to bet if Chuck Schumer, and he knows this, if he were to put that bill on the floor, it's got to get through the filibuster, so they need 10 Republicans to vote for it. I would imagine 10 Republicans, cynical Republican politicians, would vote for that bill to go to the floor of the Senate so that they could get the couple Democrats like Joe Manchin, like Kyrsten Sinema, probably, to vote against it. That's the cynical political consultant in me, but that's how it's going to work. Chuck Schumer knows that if he brings that thing to the floor, he's going to get Democrats voting against it, and it's not going to pass, and now he's in trouble because he can't whip his own vote. So there's that. When people talk about bills and legislations, remember, gun control is a much more nuanced and specific rule. You can't just pass common sense gun control and say, okay, cool, well, that's done now. No, it needs to be very, very specific. And again, I don't even like talking about this because I think the gun problem might be 15%, maybe 20% of the actual problem. The refusal to talk about anything else isn't going to lead us anywhere good. And believe me, I wholeheartedly believe that I'm saying that in good faith. I would like to talk about all of the other factors involved in the psychosis of mass shooters and what goes through their head and all of that sort of stuff. And if we can talk about that, I'm willing to talk about gun stuff. I don't know where I'd fall on it, but I'd be willing to have the conversation. I think a lot of Americans would. But again, we are missing a massive component by strictly sticking to guns. Senator Chuck Schumer knows that and knows that his Democrat colleagues will not go with it if he were to bring it to the floor. I want to get to this because this is important. Same thing to do with gun laws. California passed a gun bill yesterday that models itself after the Texas abortion bill. I said this at the time that the Texas abortion bill passed. I didn't like the way that it was structured. What it did was it allowed citizens to sue other citizens in some sort of a civil court so that they would get around the Roe versus Wade bar on government enforcing that policy. Basically, at the federal level, it's mandated that state governments and local municipalities and governments themselves can't enforce any laws that would restrict abortion. That's what the federal government says via Roe versus Wade. Now, that could all go to smoke when the actual opinion comes out. But that is it is right now. So Texas found a workaround and said, well, we're not going to enforce it, but we're going to allow other citizens to enforce it on other citizens. So the Texas abortion law allows Texans to sue doctors who perform abortions. Now, maybe you're a hardcore pro-lifer, and I would categorize myself with them as well. But the way that this law was structured scares the crap out of me, and this is why. California passed a gun control bill to allow private citizens to file suit for up to $10,000 against makers and sellers of untraceable ghost gun laws or illegal assault weapons. What is an illegal assault weapon? Who the heck knows? California. That's why I had a problem with the Texas law, and that's why I have a problem with this. Other states are now going to do it on their own. This is the entire problem that our government currently has. We can't veer guardrail to guardrail constantly because when the next party is in power, or when a state with a different party in power is in power, they're going to do the same thing for their side. There's no way to run a society. And while I agree with the sentiment of the Texas abortion law, the practice that they put it in clearly is dangerous, in that other states like California are mimicking it and allowing citizens to sue each other because they can't enforce the rules. California looks at the Constitution, and they've had plenty of unconstitutional rules get overturned by the courts, especially recently. But they look at the Constitution and say, okay, well, so the Second Amendment says we can't enforce this. So let's just do what Texas did, in which they couldn't enforce their abortion laws, and let's just let citizens enforce it. These draconian gun laws that California is trying to put in place. So if you live in California, as I do, watch out for that. That could get interesting in the coming days. Yeah. That's going to do it for us today. We will bring some stuff. I purposely didn't want to bring up so many of the other speeches that were given. Was it Senator Crow, something? Gave a speech on the Senate floor. Joe Biden gave a speech. None of it, to me, was helpful. I don't need the President of the United States to console me. It doesn't matter who it is. I don't care if it's Barack Obama, Donald Trump, Joe Biden. That's not something that I need. So I don't think it's something that most of the American people need. add in there all of the other political stuff that got thrown into that speech. But as the days continue on, we'll get a better picture of the approach from Democrats at the federal level and also various states, and we'll keep people up to date on that. The bottom line here is, and again, I can't reiterate this enough, the refusal to talk about anything other than guns when it comes to mass shootings is going to lead us nowhere. I will die on that hill. So we'll see if the conversation progresses. I hope it does. I can't imagine how it would in our current political climate. But that's going to do it for us. If you haven't already, give me a follow on any of your social media platforms at JOBOB. You can watch the entire screed from yesterday, which received a decent amount of praise. I don't want to be braggadocious here, but it's on Instagram, it's on Facebook, just the 13 minutes of just talking about where we're at. If you would like to watch that, yeah. We need to have a conversation here, and it can't surround entirely around guns, but since that's where we're at, that's what we're talking about, and we'll see how this all pans out. That's going to do it for us today. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Take you into the weekend. God bless America.